What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Filip Latocha. Today we are comparing and contrasting two of my newest everyday trainers, which is the Hoka One One Mach 4 and the New Balance 1080 version 11. Here we go. Okay, first things first, let's run the specs for both shoes here respectively. What you'll probably notice right away is that the 1080 version 11 is running slightly heavier than the Mach 4 in my size, which is 8.5, so the shoe is running at about 9.2 ounces, which converts to about 260 grams. Also worth noting is the stack height of the shoe itself, where it's about 30 in the heel and 22 in the forefoot, which gives it an 8mm offset between the two. Makes it feel a little bit more of a high heel type of shoe than the Mach 4, which is about a 5mm offset, and it has about 29mm in the heel, 24mm in the forefoot. So it's a little bit more neutral on that front. And then of course to mention, the Mach 4 is running at about 8.2 ounces, which is running at like 230 grams. So slightly less than the 1080 version 11. So on the 1080 version 11's front, does it feel nearly as heavy as it's listed? I don't think so. In fact, there's a lot of spring and a lot of responsiveness to this shoe. Once we get to the midsole and outsole, we'll kind of go into a little bit further. But definitely the Mach 4 is winning on this front of being the lighter shoe. So on the Mach 4's front with this upper, it's a generic mesh that I think we've discussed before in a video that I've got in the link description below. It's basically kind of generic. It's got a neat pattern to it, but it's not very breathable, at least from my take on it. And based on the last 40 to 50 miles I've put in this shoe as of right now, I think the consensus pretty much stands that there isn't a whole lot of breathability on that front. In the 1080 version 11, it's not nearly as breathable with this hypo knit mesh material, but the caveat here is that the material is a lot stretchier, especially here in this forefoot area, and just basically anything that's red on this shoe in the upper is going to stretch. So it's very nice if you have a foot that's going to be a little bit larger than normal, or if you have a slightly wider foot and you're in this more of a narrow toe box kind of area, you're going to see the shoe is going to stretch a little bit to your foot's fitting, and it's going to be a nice feel overall. If you do need to decide you need to go wide for any reason in the shoe, you know, go for it. I would say it won't really impact too much based on the way the hypo knit is reacting. So let's talk lockdown. In the 1080 version 11, this heel tongue, I think we've already discussed it before, it doesn't feel like you're having a really good lockdown because of like how slippery it is and just the way the material is kind of built out. But what you'll notice while you're running is that you do in fact have a pretty decent lockdown, and you know, it's just a sensation with this heel lip, with this flare out, I suppose you can say. And yeah, it's a very interesting lockdown, but you get used to it after like the first quarter to half a mile of your run. In the Mach 4, I've definitely discussed this before, this fit is like really perfect. Just the way the heel collar and this flare out basically fit with your foot, it's amazing. Like everything about this lockdown is really superb so far, and I've said it before, it feels like the lockdown for the Pegasus Turbo 2 in a way where it could almost replace that shoe if the Pegasus Turbo 2 was to go extinct off the market. So that on that front, definitely the Mach 4 is winning in the lockdown category if we had to go into that direction. Now let's talk about midsoles, outsoles, and the bottoms of the shoe. So Mach 4 has two different types of foams basically running through it. Of course, we've got this ProFly, which is this top layer of foam, and then the bottom is just like also doubling more or less as the outsole, and it's a little bit stiff if you see it from the way the shoe kind of bends. It's not necessarily a bad thing as of right now. If you are more of a stable runner, it's going to be very interesting kind of running with this shoe because you would like something that's a little bit more flexible and kind of takes your step every time you go. But in this particular shoe, it's an everyday trainer that you can push with a little bit more speed if you have the control and the handling to basically deal with this type of shoe. So again, this kind of operates in a similar way if we had to use Nike as an analogy. The ProFly resembles kind of this ZoomX foam feel, and this bottom represents what feels like a React, where it's a little bit more responsive, it's a little bit more dense, and it has the purpose of being a little bit more protective on that front, so you're not just like sinking into the ground from foam and not getting a return out of it. So on the 1080 version 11 side, we have just one piece of Fresh Foam X running across the shoe, and it's basically, if again we have to use a Nike analogy for it, it feels like something between the Zoom X and the React, and it's got a lot of spring to it still in this midfoot, forefoot area, which I really like overall. And of course, with as much foam as there is on this shoe, it's also very protective if you're going to go on a long run or something like that. But the major difference on that front is that we do have, in fact, rubber reinforcement on the bottom of the shoe. So in a lifespan sense, I would say the 1080 version 11 is definitely going to have a longer lifespan than the Mach 4, just because it's got additional parts to the shoe. In fact, if we do look at the bottom of the 1080 version 11 that I have here, you'll probably see in my right foot that the only area that's seriously getting torn up here is this like midfoot area where the foam is exposed, and of course my usual culprit here on the anterior side of the shoe. The rubber is still holding on pretty well, the foam is looking a little bit scratched up, but the shoe's life so far looks good. On the Mach 4 side, I've only got about 50 miles on it, and on the right shoe, is this my right foot? This looks like my right foot. It looks like it's, you know, still just kind of chomping away at the foam as it is, but there's no rubber reinforcement, and that's just going to be something to worry about as we're moving forward in terms of the shoe's lifespan, and if I'm ever going to drill into the Pro Fly while I'm running. Okay, so the rides of the shoes, ultimately, this is where the major difference kicks in terms of where I would use the shoe and how the shoe responds to my running style. So in the Mach 4, basically it's going to be the shoe that I use for my everyday training. That's going to have a lot more speed that I could use for like a tempo or threshold workout, just because of the way the shoe reacts with the Pro Fly and this outsole foam. It just has a lot more pep in the step, I guess you can say, and it's got a lot more spring to it on that front, and it doesn't have any sort of caveat to make the best of the shoe work. It's just, again, if I'm just doing a forefoot strike, the foams will just, you know, compress and decompress accordingly, and I should have a really good time with it overall, and in fact I am having a great time with it. It just, again, the stability is still in question because the shoe is so stiff that when you hit the ground on a more supinated side, the shoe won't necessarily flex to that side. It's just gonna kind of have this like double drop per se, if I'm just like over exaggerating the way the shoe's gonna work, but you kind of get my picture there. It's the idea is that the shoe isn't necessarily flexing nearly as much as I would like it to on that front. Now on the 1080 version 11 side, this is where things are a little bit interesting. It's just my take from experience with the shoe. You can actually see it right now, especially here. I think the shoe is purposely designed in a way for you to have a midfoot strike and then roll with it. So again, this is going to be a little bit of an easier run shoe where most of your energy output from the shoe is going to be using the foam to roll it out. And now, again, it has still a lot of flex, so if I am supinating, the shoe will flex to my outer kind of stride or my foot landing. So that's going to be really comfortable on that front. But yeah, for the most part, again, there's more of a roll to this shoe than there is in the Mach 4. So overall, where does each shoe respectively stand in my category? Well, right now, both shoes are excellent everyday trainers as far as I'm concerned. The only major difference is this is the everyday trainer I'm going to use for more of my speed and threshold workouts, if that's going to be what the day calls for. And the New Balance 1080 version 11 is going to be the everyday trainer with a little bit more of a recovery and also potentially long run distance style workouts because of the endurance and the durability that the shoe ultimately provides. So to break it down even more, this is going to be my speed and lockdown shoe. This is going to be my comfort, endurance, and basically durability type of shoe when I'm using them respectively. So if you have any questions about either of the shoes or you agree with the assessment, definitely comment that down below. But yeah, for the most part, both shoes respectively have their rightful place as everyday trainers in my lineup, and both at like a large scale are pretty much interchangeable. But if you're more of a specific type of runner, or you kind of understand what shoes you're using more often, you'll understand where each shoe kind of fits in its place in your shoe lineup. So again, if you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. Make sure you comment down below if you agree with the assessment, if you have both shoes, if you have a different take on them, or which one you like more, you know, just let me know down in the comments below. And then of course, if you're not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. Lots of cool stuff always coming around here. So thanks again for watching this video. See you guys real soon.